My mother told me if I ever rode a motorcycle, she'd disown me. My father told me he'd rather break my legs himself, at least that way I wouldn't crash and break them somewhere outside. And the crazy thing, they were serious. This wasn't a movie scene. This actually happened at my family's dinner table about 30 years ago, 5 minutes after I told them I want to ride a motorcycle. Don't worry, my legs are fine, my mother still loves me, and almost 30 years later, I'm still riding. Today, I want to tell you how one completely ordinary Shanghai family reacted to their son wanting a motorcycle. And by the end, I will tell you what I would do if my kid came to me one day and said the same thing. Let's go back 30 years. I was about 18 living in Shanghai, and before I ever told my parents anything, I'd already bought the bike. I knew exactly how they react. So I didn't bring it home. I kept it and all my gear at a friend's place. I'd ride in secret, then come home like nothing happened. The plan was simple. Plant idea slowly until it wasn't a shock anymore. You know the boiling frog thing? That was basically my strategy. Though I definitely didn't call it that at the time. I was just a kid who loved motorcycle and didn't want to give it up. But a bike parked at someone else's house forever wasn't exactly sustainable. So eventually, I had to tell them. I still remember the dinner. I said, I want to ride a motorcycle. 5 minutes later, the family meeting was over. My dad, deadly serious. If you ride that thing, I'll break your legs myself. My mom, choose a motorcycle over listen to us and don't expect our support. Hearing that from your parents is not relaxing. I was nervous, not because I actually believed my dad would do it. Well, maybe 5% I believed it. For a second, I even thought, if my leg really got broken, how inconvenient would that be? Then I realized the inconvenience wasn't the problem. The real problem was I wouldn't be able to ride anymore. That part I couldn't accept. The answer that night was a hard no. No negotiable, big no. Honestly, I wasn't too worried because the next day I was back on the bike, just riding further from home. I knew my dad's daily routine better than anyone. Looking back now as a father myself, I completely understand their reaction. They weren't trying to kill my hobby. They were afraid of losing their son. They just didn't know how to say that out loud. In my family, love usually wasn't spoken. It was shown by trying to stop you from doing anything that could hurt you, even if that means threatening to break your legs. Funny thing is, 30 years later, nothing really changed. Every time I visit my parents and grab my helmet before heading out, I still see that same look on their faces. A little disappointment, a little worry. They still don't like it. They still worry. They have accepted it's just part of who I am. I'll admit, I wasn't the easiest kid. I liked to make my own decisions. And in China 30 years ago, that wasn't exactly the norm. Some people would call me rebellious, but I always believed if something matters to you, you take responsibility for the choice. Eventually, my plan worked. Of course, my parents didn't start loving motorcycles. They just slowly accepted their son was going to ride one. There was a prize, though. After 2 weeks, where we barely spoke. Not because I didn't want to talk to them. They didn't want to talk to me. When they did, it was usually some version of, you are grown now, we can't control you, we can't tell you what to do. Or, you never listened to your mother. Honestly, they weren't wrong. So I stopped it arguing. I just kept writing. I'm actually at my parents' place writing this script right now. I brought the story up with them today, 30 years later. They're still a little annoying about it. My dad's responsible. Wait till your kid says he wants to ride. Let's see what you do. Never actually thought about that. I think my answer would be different from theirs. I'll tell him it's dangerous. He needs to understand the risk. But if he thought it through and he's willing to own the choice, it's his to make. Although, knowing how stubborn kids are these days, maybe my dad's method it was to try once. I'm joking, probably. So what did your parents say when you started riding? Anything like mine? Drop it in the comment. I'm genuinely curious if parents everywhere are running the same playbook.